looks like Yummy MITSU might be catching on. What is up, Duelists? Super Insane 18 here, and as you know, I have been going all out on Yummy Mitsurugi. I truly believe that this is the best variant of Yummy, because having the supplementary engine does actually add so much into the deck and fixes a lot of the problems that I think that the pure version has. So we're going to show you the updated post-ban list deck profile as well as the combo, so make sure you stay tuned until the very end. And before we get into it, I do just want to remind you guys that later this week I will be dropping a fully dedicated Yummy Mitsurugi Masterclass completely for free. There will be no charge. There will be a download to the spreadsheet as well as probably a several hour-long video going through combos, tips and tricks, interactions, so on and so forth. So make sure you guys are ready for that, but otherwise, let's jump on it. Now, the list might be pretty similar to the one we uploaded yesterday from the top 8 of the Yuma, Arizona Regional. We did make a couple of changes because there were just some things that I really didn't like and some things that I think are necessary, so we'll go over them. Of course, we have our 3 copies of Cupsy Yummy, and we're just maxing out on the names. 3 copies of Cookie, as well as our 3 copies of Lollipo as well. Every single one of these is a 1-card starter, especially for the new combo, so wait until you see that. I actually think that the combo got better now that we don't have 2 Herald. But yeah, so you want to max out on all the names because they are starters. Which, speaking of starters, we of course have our 3 copies of Habetler, and as Josh mentioned in his top 8 profile, again, go check that out if you haven't, huge congrats to him. This card functions both as a bridge into the Yummy line, being able to bridge your Mitsu engine into the Yummies, but it also just functions as ridiculous extension. A lot of the time they'll stop your Yummy cards, and then you just win off the back of the Mitsurugi cards, and it's absolutely insane. We of course have Murakumo, which is really ridiculous, being a board wipe, a Omni Negate or discard, and being able to recur itself, just a very, very strong card to have. One of each of the little Mitsu names, we have the Saji, the Kusanagi, and the Aramasa. Technically speaking, Aramasa is another 1-card starter, although it's probably the worst 1-card starter in the deck. But we're playing 18 1-card starters, so the percentage is something like 95, I think, percent that we're going to be seeing it. So yeah, really, really good. And then the 1 copy of the Snake-Eye Birch. This card is what effectively allows you to bridge the Mitsu into the Yummy, which we will show in the spreadsheet, not the spreadsheet, but the masterclass. Not in today's video, unfortunately, but I have shown it before, so go ahead and check out some of the older videos. But a lot of people like to call this card a brick, and simply speaking, it is not. Because there are games that I've won off the back of opening 4 hand traps and Birch, normal the worst hand trap in your hand, link it into Almirage, Almirage is a fire, go ahead and special summon the Birch, full Yummy combo because you take the Almirage and the Birch into Cupsy Way, and you just get to go off. And then we just have a bunch of hand traps. Of course, we are on 3 copies of Fuwalos, and now we are maxing out on Molcharmies with the additional 3 copies of the Perulia. This is something that Josh did that I really missed in the event that we played, so definitely wanted to put those in the main. We have our 3 copies of Ash Blossom, being just the most generic hand trap in the game, and then 2 copies of Bell. I think Bell is ridiculously strong in this format. On to the spells, we have our 2 copies of Surprise and our 1 copy of Mignon. I do think that 2 Surprise is very, very important and very, very necessary, especially with the new iteration of the combo. You want to hard open it more than you did before because you actually have to use it during your turn and you're not going to get it back, which you'll see. So I think it's really important to have a second. Then we have our 2 copies of Prayers and the 1 Ritual. Prayers is not a starter, so you don't want to max out on it. Oftentimes I actually side one of them out, but we do still need it, and we want to be able to have 2 just so that we can continue to recur our Mitsurugi lines. More starters, of course, we have the Engage and the Hornet Drones. This is just full combo as well because you can get into Kagari with a level 1, which makes your Cupsy Synchros. And then the final starter we have is the 1-for-1. This is probably tied for worst starter with the Aramasa because you discard a card and if you get like Ash Blossomed, it really sucks. But a lot of times I use this and I hold it as additional extensions. Like if I play other cards and they stop me, this helps me fight through it. And the final card for the deck is going to be the 1 copy of the Great Purification, making the main deck 40 cards. Let's show you guys the extra. The extra deck is going to almost be card for card exactly what I've shown you guys previously, although there is the obvious elephant in the room, and that is that we are minus 1 copy of Herald. So we'll go over the replacement for it as we go. Of course, we have 1 each of our Yummy Synchro monsters, no more, no less. They're all important to play, but you don't want any more because they are pretty much infinitely recurable. Then we have two Synchro 3s. We have the Shamisen Samsara Sarokat and the Martial Metal Marcher. Now, the Sarokat is our replacement for the missing Herald, and this card is absurd. I cannot wait for you guys to see it in the combo, but essentially it not only makes it so that you can link away your Herald, effectively getting into the Mitsurugi engine really easily, but it also recurs your Herald from the graveyard, meaning that we don't miss only having the one, and because it can quick sync during the opponent's turn, you actually get to your Herald much quicker in the new combo than you did in the old combo, meaning that you have an Omni Negate live a lot sooner, which is very, very strong. And then the Martial Metal Marcher is the Marcher, don't need to explain that. And then we have our one copy of the Herald, just because it's still Herald, and that is still the purpose of, or not purpose, but rather one of the crucial pieces on our end board. We do have our Infernal Flame Banshee, which is the way that we bridge the Mitsurugi engine into the Yummies, because two of your level 4 Mitsurugis into Flame Banshee into Birch, Special Birch, Flame Banshee into Gravity Controller plus Birch equals a Yummy Synchro. Pretty easy. We are on 2 copies of Yummy Snatchy. This variant does not need a third. I've only missed having a third one time over the course of, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 rounds that I have played since I picked up this deck, and I won that game anyway, so it really isn't necessary. This card is really recurable and really easy to play with only 2, especially when you guys see the combo lines. We have our one copy of Gravity Controller, again, because this is part of the bridge. And then, of course, we have our one copy of Link Spider. Now, a lot of people have been cutting Link Spider because they don't really need it through Nibiru, and that is true. This is not a Nibiru card. The reason that I am on Link Spider is because there have been a ton of games where I've been stuck on the Sky Striker token, and if it was a Link 1, or even if it was just an effect monster, so I could do something like SP, I would be able to go into so much more than I previously would have. And so I've come up with a love for Link Spider and feeling that it is pretty much mandatory, not for the nib, but to be able to turn your Sky Striker token into a Link 1 in the worst case scenarios. Then, of course, we have our one copy of the Salamangreat Almirage. This is pretty self-explanatory, and our one copy of Sky Striker Ace Kagari, self-explanatory as well. And then finishing off the extra deck, we of course have our one copy of SP Little Knight and our one copy of Uka. Both of these cards are incredible. SP is a mainstay on the end board, and Uka is how you are able to pretty much infinitely recur everything that you need. So let's show you guys that combo. For the new combo, it is going to be a 1.5 card combo, utilizing any of your Yummy names. I'm just showing you the Cupsy because it's just really easy, but it's 100% interchangeable, and any card that you want to discard. So let's go ahead and show you guys how it works. We are going to start with the normal summon of our name. In this case, it's going to be Cupsy, so we can utilize the effect to add our copy of Surprise from the deck to the hand. However, if you start with any of the other names, just make sure that when you do summon your Cupsy throughout your combo, that you are searching the Surprise, because the Surprise is very important. We're going to go ahead and link off the Cupsy into our first copy of the Yummy Snatchy, and the Snatchy is going to be able to activate its effect, allowing us to play the copy of Mignon from our deck to our side of the field. We can utilize the Mignon to reborn out our Cupsy Yummy, or whatever Yummy name we have, and that gives us the materials that we need to take the Snatchy and the Yummy name and go into our first Synchro, which is going to be the Cupsy Yummy way. The Cupsy is, of course, going to activate its effect, and we're going to add our copy of Cookie as well as our copy of Lollipo. If you started with either one of these, you're just adding the 2 names that you haven't used yet because you need all of the names in rotation. And then now we're going to go ahead and discard a card, which is where that comes into play. Now, previous combos, we actually discarded one of our names. We can't afford to do that anymore because we actually need it as extension for the combo. But now what we can do is we can go ahead and link off the Cupsy into our second Snatchy, and we can special one of the names. I like to do anything that isn't Cookie, just because Cookie is the best way to play around your opposing Nibiru, because it can lower the Nibiru to 2,000 attack, so you always want to save it for last if you can. But we can then take the Snatchy and whatever name we have, performing another Synchro Summon into our copy of Lollipo. And now that we have the Lollipo, we will use its effect to reborn 2 of our level 1 Yummies, because we want to have them as Synchro fodder. We're going to take the Lollipo Yummy Way and one of our level 1s, and this is going to go into our Martial Metal Marcher, which on the effect, or on the summon of Marcher, we can reborn either of our 2 Synchros since they're both tuners. It really does not matter which one because you're just going to link it off, or rather sync it off anyway. But this is the nib check. If your opponent has Nibiru, they pretty much have to do it here, because if they don't, the next summon is going to be taking the Marcher and the level 1 we have left, and this goes into our copy of Herald of the Arclight, meaning that we can negate our opposing Nibiru. Now we still have a Yummy on the field, so we can special the final name that we have left in our hand, and utilizing the Yummy synchro we have, plus our final level 1, we can go ahead and go into our Samsara Sorrow Cat. Sorrow Cat is really cool here because it will be able to put our Herald back into the extra deck, which means that we're safe to link it off. Remember, we don't really have to worry about Nibiru, because our opponent would have used it before we got to the Herald. So we're going to go ahead and link off the Sorrow Cat and the Herald. This is going to go into our copy of SP Little Knight. We can activate Herald as Chainlink 1. If you want to use Little Knight as Chainlink 2, maybe your opponent has something in the graveyard, or you have a card you don't care about banishing, like the Marcher or something, just to chain block the Herald, you can go ahead and do so, but the important part is that Herald activates, allowing us to bridge into our Mitsurugi engine, getting the Habakiri to our hand. We can activate the Habakiri in hand to reveal it. This is of course going to summon out our copy of Saji from our deck, and then the Saji will be tributed, allowing us to utilize the Saji effect, which adds a spell or trap. In this case, it's going to be the Mitsurugi Ritual. We can activate the Mitsurugi Ritual effect to summon from deck, tributing the Habakiri from our hand. This is going to summon the Murakumo from our deck to our side of the field, and it's also going to activate the effect of Habakiri because it was tributed. Now, it does get the add, it will not get to summon back since it was not properly summoned, but the add is the important part because it's going to allow us to add our copy of Mitsurugi Prayers. We can activate the Mitsurugi Prayers, tributing the Murakumo, and that is going to allow us to do both effects in sequence. We can add the Kusanagi from our deck to our hand, and then immediately summon the Kusanagi to our side of the field. That is going to activate 2 effects. We will Chainlink 1 the Murakumo and Chainlink 2 the Kusanagi. Kusanagi is going to target the prayers, and then Murakumo will be able to add itself back, or rather summon itself while adding a card from deck to hand. So Kusanagi adds the prayers back, and then the Murakumo summons itself and adds us our copy of Great Purification. We can go ahead and now utilize the graveyard effect of our Samsara Sorrow Cat. That will summon itself back out to our side of the field by returning a synchro monster from our grave to our extra deck. In this case, it's going to be the Herald. So now what we can do is set our prayers and our Great Purification, and the best way to play around Nibiru is to proceed into end phase. If our opponent Nibiru's us here, we still have prayers and purification. Prayers can reborn the Murakumo for a board wipe, and the purification is another Omni Negate, but we also still have our surprise to reborn names as well. However, now, if they don't Nibiru us, we're in our end phase, which means we can no longer be Nibiru'd, and now we can activate surprise in our end phase. This is going to allow us to reborn one of our Yummy Synchro monsters. I usually like to do the Cupsy just because it has the biggest defense, and that is going to be our end board, which is absolutely absurd. So what do we have here? Keep in mind that everything from this point out is on the opponent's turn, so what we have is as soon as our opponent activates any effect, we're going to go ahead and tag out the Cupsy. This is going to allow us to summon back out our Lollipo Yummy Way, and then any level 1. I usually like to go into something like the Cupsy, just because the Cupsy will be able to draw us a card. So on a new chain, we can go Chainlink 1 Cupsy, we get to draw a card, but we can Chainlink to our Sorrow Cat, which is going to go ahead and synchro, using itself and the Cupsy Yummy. It gets banished when it leaves the field, but that is going to allow us to re-establish our Herald. So now we got Herald incredibly quickly. We have an Omni Negate in Herald, an Omni Negate in Purification, an Omni Negate or a discard with Murakumo, a board wipe by reviving the Murakumo, a banish with SP Little Knight, and the Lollipo Yummy Way can still tag out into our copy of Snatchy, as well as our Cookie, which gets us a pop off the Cookie effect, and we still have our Quick Synchro utilizing the Snatchy and the Cookie or whatever level 1 into our Cookie for Book of Moons. So this is just absolutely insane. A ton of interaction. You still have 3 cards in hand, and arguably a much better combo than when we had 2 Herald. And there you have it. That is going to be my updated post-ban list Yummy Mitsurugi combo and deck profile. I apologize if it seemed a little rushed. I saw some of the bigger creators start to make content on this, and I wanted to get this out to you guys as soon as possible so that I don't get lost in the sea of videos. Remember, again, later this week I will be dropping the fully dedicated masterclass for Yummy Mitsurugi, fully free of charge. I just want to get you guys this information because I believe that if we all help build each other up and we help grind each other up, that we will be in a much better place. So you know the deal. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, like, comment, share with your friends, and as always, don't forget to check out the channel sponsors, both Dueling Guard and Imperium Duelist, using my links in the description down below. You can help to support the channel as well as allow me to continue bringing you guys this amazing content. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.